The other day when I was mentioning to somebody that I would be celebrating the 50th anniversary of my first Mass this coming Sunday, he asked, was it the same Sunday 50 years ago? And I said, no. Well, why did I know it so well? Well, first of all, I remembered, I thought it was Pentecost or something like that, and I ended up Googling it, and it turned out it was Trinity Sunday, because as you know, Easter moves around according to how the moon is. But the other reason I was able to say no so definitively is because 50 years ago, the Feast of the Ascension was not celebrated on Sunday, but it was celebrated on Thursday. It was Ascension Thursday, and it was a holy day of obligation. Then probably about maybe 30 years ago, the feast was moved from Thursday to Sunday. And some, when they said, well, how can you change history by moving it to Sunday? Is it just simply make it more convenient? Well, actually, this Feast of the Ascension, mentioning about 40 days, is only mentioned in one book of the New Testament, and that is the Acts of the Apostles. None of the Gospels speak of this particular event. And that is because each of the Gospels had a different way of describing what is the meaning of the Ascension. In the case of Luke, who wrote the Acts of the Apostles, he wanted to, first of all, to show there was a time in which Jesus had to leave. The time between the resurrection and the ascension was a time of Jesus appearing to his disciples, speaking about the coming of the Spirit, and say, you're going to have to do what I've been doing. Now, what Luke did in the Acts of the Apostles was he paralleled this event with the event of Elijah in the Old Testament, chapter 2 of the second book of Kings. And that was when Elijah was doing his ministry, he had a disciple named Elisha. And he knew he couldn't stay forever, and so he had to pass on the mantle of prophecy to Elisha. And then, as it was described, Elijah was taken up in a fiery chariot into the heavens, showing his unique role as a prophet. So Luke takes that particular event and parallels it with what Jesus needed to do. He had to go up, return to heaven with his Father, but it wasn't just that. His followers had to take on the mantle of evangelization. They could no longer depend on Jesus. So their role was changed from being disciples to being apostles. In today's gospel, the very end of Matthew's gospel, Jesus gives them their commission. He says, "Go forth and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." But he also said, "But I haven't abandoned you. Know that I am with you always to the very end." This feast is a reminder to us, not simply about Jesus going up into the clouds or going up like a balloon into the skies. No, it is, he is departing so that his disciples may continue his work. They are the extension of the presence of Jesus in the world. And that had to take place because if they had not, Jesus' effect would have been very limited. Just the people who'd experienced him during his lifetime. But if his mission was to be accomplished, It had to be one in which he handed on to others. And that's why I say is it was that moment that they went from being disciples to being apostles. Apostle means to be sent forth. And that's what he said. Go forth. And just as I made you disciples, you must go forth to make others disciples. So that just as you heard my message, they must continue to hear my message through you. And you know, that has continued. The key for being an apostle to a disciple to an apostle is baptism. When we are initiated into this community called the church, it's not simply a rite from coming into some exclusive country club. It is a rite in which we change our relationship to God. We become his sons and daughters, but it is a rite in which it doesn't just stop there. All those who are baptized also have a call to share that message, to go forth to make other disciples. So it is a commission not just for the few, but it's commissioned for all of you, because you have the ability to touch another individual, to bring a person to Christ that no one else could. So we're celebrating the ascension, not simply Jesus' departure, but rather Jesus' presence among us and his commissioning to us as well to reach the ends of the earth, making further disciples so that Jesus' mission may be complete.